Blake, if you could get a call on your birthday from any celebrity, besides me, of course, who would it be?
Elvis, baby.
Welcome to the Church Gear Podcast, where we pull the tech out of the booth and onto the stage to share the most outlandish stories and hidden wisdom from the tech trenches. And now, here are your hosts.
I'm your host, Blake Hodges, a man who would like to have Elvis call him from heaven so I can ask him what it's like. And I'm here with my co-host who realizes what any celebrity means now, Toby Walters.
Yeah, so I did not specify living or dead, so you went with living in heaven now, as we like to assume, because he was the king. Blake, can you name a single Elvis song? We've been here before, my friend. Did you...
Hunk Hunk a Burnin' Love?
I don't know that's something he says. I don't know that that's actually a song.
Dang it.
I know. Your father is deeply disappointed.
He's going to drown me in the hot tub
yes,
tonight.
I think he is. So, Blake, I had this great idea one year. Have you heard of the website cameo.com?
Toby, I'm on Cameo, bro.
Oh, of course.
I'm just kidding.
Now that you're a big deal with the Church Gear podcast.
Z-level celebrity.
So I wanted to get, because I don't know if all of our listeners know, but you are Dwight from The Office. The similarities are uncanny. So I wanted to get somebody else from The Office to record a birthday message for you. So I wrote out a whole script and I went through all the forms on the website, and then I got to the price and I was like, oh man,
you really did this?
It was like $300 to do it. And I'm like, I'm not that invested in the joke, but it was going to be Kevin from The Office.
Oh
yeah. And he was going to, at the end, he was going to fire you.
I kind of think you could have AI at this point read that script as Kevin. I bet that would work.
Yeah, that's a good point. Blake, you know me, nothing stop. What's the word I'm looking for? There is no boundary that I'm willing to cross to reach out to somebody famous.
I have no shame.
I have no shame. So if, somebody gives me a challenge of you could never get Bono on the podcast, although you don't know who Bono is, so it wouldn't matter anyways.
You could never get Taylor Swift on the podcast.
Challenge accepted. So I just learned early on that most people are still people, even if they are, and let's not say Taylor Swift, but go a couple layers back, people that work with Taylor Swift. And so I've been able to connect with some high level people in my past just because I asked. I think most people assume they would never talk to me. They would never work with me. Their credits, their,
resume.
Their resume is way out of the league. So when I was doing records, when I was, trying to be the next Chris Tomlin, David Crowder, I reached out to a guy so he lived in the San Diego area, but he had worked on Smashing Pumpkins records, had helped mix them. And so I reached out and asked him, hey, would you ever consider helping mix my record? And he said, absolutely.
Because do you got money?
Yes, that's essentially it. Just because they've worked on major things doesn't mean that they're working at every second and aren't willing to take other lesser famous jobs for money. They still
if Kevin
charge
can
money.
Be bought for $300, those credits can't be that good.
And then another record I was doing, there's another guy in town that had worked on Blink 182's record, and so I was able to hire him to help mix it. A lot of these people actually are accessible and they do work for money. It's unsurprising, but
still you didn't take off. They say you got to fix it at the source.
And there was this article, it was several years ago. And one of the characters from the Cosby Show, the actor, was seen working at Trader Joe's, and people were shaming him online for having a job. They just assume you were a famous actor. What are you doing working at Trader Joe's? And he's like, yeah, Cosby Show doesn't pay the bills anymore, idiots. So it's just interesting. People can be in high level places working with A-level artists or shows or whatever it is, but they still work with normal people sometimes too.
And speaking of celebrities, that's going to still speak to some normal people like us, the audio specialist and live front of house engineer, Doug Kimball. Doug, thank you for taking the time to talk to us and being accessible.
You're most welcome. Just like you said, it's not uncommon for people to approach you, so don't be afraid.
Yeah, and Doug was one of those guys where we asked another guy just like this, oh, okay, if we could get some just,
Awesome
A-level
people,
production people, and he gave us a handful of names, and Doug's was one of those names. So, Doug, we're going to be very excited to, mine some stories out of your brain and your past, and just, learn about some of these crazy artists and events that you've worked with.
Don't think you have enough time today.
We'll do part 2 later on.
Yeah, Doug was recommended by our boy Chad, who is front of Fall Out Boys front of house guy. All right.
Chad Olick. Yep.
Chad Olick. That's such a unique last name. I like that. Olick. All right. We're going to do our 5 Truths and a Lie, which is our weekly game to introduce our guest. And they try to, sneak a lie into their 5 truths as we get to know about them before we interview them. Number 1, he's self-taught. Where did that accent come from? Number 2, he's been in the business for 38 years.
Okay.
Number 3, he retired and is teaching at WSU.
Yeah, Wichita State.
Oh.
Okay.
Number 4, he's a private pilot. This runs in production a lot.
Yeah, there's a lot of it's a lot
Production
of flying
pilots.
Lessons.
It's just another P word,
I think they fly so much that, it probably gets in their head. Like, maybe I should, be the pilot someday.
Number 5, have sailed a large sailboat.
Okay.
Lanes, trains, and automobiles right here. Number
Yeah.
6, look at that. Number
The automobile.
have a classic car, 1960 Chevy Impala. Man, my mom is ready to hang out with you and drive that car with you.
So it's not planes, trains, and automobiles. It's planes, boats, and automobiles.
Which I would say is a lot better.
Okay. All right, Blake. These nothing is standing out as obvious here. Do you have any inklings?
I do actually.
Okay.
I think
I'll
all
let you go
3
first.
of those vehicles, either one of them is the lie or he's highly just like he loves driving stuff.
Yep.
He looks like a classic car guy. I'm going to say he's not sailed a large sailboat. I think the lie is the pilot or the sailboat. There's no way he's done both.
All right. I'll say that the lie is the pilot then. I'll
All
jump
right.
on your bandwagon.
We're locked in. Toby's got pilot. I've got large sailboat.
Large sailboat.
That was going to be my guess, and I let you go first.
You're very kind,
Yeah.
Toby.
You need these points in your life. You have so little, Blake.
I do. There's just sometimes you need some things. How'd you teach yourself back in the day?
Self-taught, and I've been teaching my kids that ever since. There was no college. There was nothing for us. We just got out and knuckled down and made a name for ourselves and proved that we could show up on time and do the job. And that was how it started, really. Nowadays, there's colleges, which I teach now, to give the students a little bit of a advanced notice, of what to expect. Like I teach a business class and I teach an actual live audio class. So it's hard to explain to them how I did 38 years doing this with A-listers. I started from the ground up. I just made a name for myself.
And
that's all I can say.
What was the first place you actually got your hands on production gear?
An old band called Steppenwolf.
Oh, yes. Born to be Wild, Blake.
That was the first place? Wow.
Well, I did some like driving and t-shirt sales, but my first band was Steppenwolf, or 82, I want to say 1982. And just lucked out, got in the circle, and I did quite a few years with him. Got my name in his book, got my name on the record, stuff like that. Just, keeping those eyes open and watching what's going on and learning, and instead of going, oh, this is the only thing I'm here for, so this is all I'm going to do. This is what I teach my students. I go, even though it's not your job, if somebody needs help, help them. Trust me, somebody will see that, and you will further your career.
Toby, when they say pull yourself up by your bootstraps, I always think that phrase is like wildly too expectant. But I think this is a man with that deep, gravelly voice that he did pull himself up by his bootstraps.
And I think it's, different generations. Like your generation, Blake, just assumes that YouTube will teach you everything.
Yeah, university YouTube.
Yeah. And Doug, I hope you didn't learn to fly on YouTube. Tell us, what are you qualified to fly?
Well, I'm only licensed to fly a single engine, but I've flown twin engines and jets illegally. But I can fly them. If something was to happen on an airline, I could put one of those planes on the ground safely. I know I can. My whole family's aircraft. My dad was a test pilot for Sikorsky, my uncle's certified citation jets. Okay, so we're all airplane friendly, and I just grew up in it. It just made common sense to me. Where some people really have to be trained to do that, to understand why the plane does what it does. But to me, it's second nature, quite honestly.
And Blake, because I know a little about a lot, Doug, can you fly into the soup? Are you certified to fly in the soup?
Not certified, but I have flown blindly through rain clouds. Yeah, that's scary.
Have you ever heard that term before, Blake?
I haven't, but intuitively I was like, so that's weather, I'm guessing?
Yeah, like into clouds where you cannot see around you anymore.
Yeah, where you can't see the level ground. So you have to actually look at the instruments to tell you where you're at.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've done that. I'm not certified, but I can do it.
Okay.
And it's scary. It's definitely scary. I'll tell you that.
And you're definitely going to be flying into the soup on this episode of the podcast because we're going to, thunderstorm him.
I don't think that works.
Things are going to get crazy.
Okay.
I ain't afeared.
I ain't afeared.
So, Doug, unfortunately, we try and keep our podcast under an hour. So you're going to have to give us a quick snapshot of, your incredible career and some of the artists you've worked with. So go.
All right. Like I said, I started out early. I started out as a musician and then took a fantastic loving to sound because I had to do my own sound in my bands. And that just launched me from there on out. I worked with a man called John McBride, who is married to Martina McBride.
Yeah.
And he has a killer studio in Nashville now.
He sure does.
So, yes, he does. And so that was kind of my first start. And then I just took it from there. Gosh, I've been with everybody from A to Z. I just finished Aerosmith's 50th tour.
What?
Shazam.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. It was supposed to be a year tour and it lasted 4 shows. But
what happened?
Steven Tyler's voice.
It was time. Honestly, they were just couldn't keep up with the energy that they wanted to represent. So they just called it a day.
Man, that's tough.
Yeah. So I've been, gosh, everybody from Pat Benatar, Engelbert Humperdinck, Enrique Iglesias, just on and on. I mean, it's A to Z. Billy Gibbons and I are best friends from ZZ Top. He always sends me a turkey. Steve Vai sends me, he's a vegetarian and he makes honey and he sends me a bottle of honey every year for Christmas. I mean, just things like that.
Yeah.
But I mean, 38 years, that's huge. I mean, usually people do about 3 or 4 tours every year, So if you multiply that by 38 years, I've got well over 100 bands under my belt.
He has done his 10,000 hours.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And shouldn't you say everyone from A to Jay-Z?
I've done Jay-Z.
Yeah,
actually.
see?
For real? What was that like? Any stories or moments there? Man.
Having Beyonce stand next to me every night was about as good as it got.
For real? Like she would stand back there in the booth with you?
Oh, absolutely. She'd stand right next to me and talk to me during the show. Yep.
Now, would she ever...
But and I got to say, I mean, I'm not a big rap fan, but Jay-Z actually wrote pretty cool music. I mean, for what he did. There was actually melodies and stuff in there where the regular rappers don't have anything but just blah, 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 blah. He was really cool. Really cool dude. I liked it a lot, actually.
Would Beyonce ever give you mixing direction or advice?
No, she just liked to talk to me.
Yeah.
As a person, and, and shares family stories because I'm married too. And we would just talk about our wives or our husband, whatever. We just talk as normal people.
Yeah.
Was that was that tough? Or you've worked with so many famous people. Have you just gotten immune to, the starstruck of being around somebody?
Yeah, pretty much. I started to realize that they're just normal people like the rest of us. I have family that come out and see shows every once in a while, or used to. And they just can't grasp the fact that I can just go talk to somebody. It's just for most of the world, it's a realm they don't think they can achieve or even enjoy, but they're just normal people like us. I mean, really, quite honestly.
Yeah.
And they can carry on a conversation
because we're, all curious and also, we don't want to disparage anybody. Who are some of the just kindest, A-level talent that you've worked with that you love their heart because they're just such sweet people?
There's a couple that come to mind. First and foremost is Tears for Fears, Roland and Kurt. Family to me. I did 8 years with them. We just became really good friends. Who else? That sticks out the most because they by far were my favorite people. Pat Benatar was cool. I brought my son out one year, and she would come get him every morning and take him off to do laundry.
That's amazing.
That's so fun.
So she was pretty cool.
Were there any key moments or a key moment particularly that kind of opened the door for you to mix such A-level talent? Because like your story is really wild to me so far of like taught himself how to mix, having a conversation with Beyonce at the booth, doing Jay-Z's stuff. Like what, is there a key moment or thing that like kind of launched you?
Yeah, I tell a lot of my students and people I go, I think I was a little ahead of my time because I started getting involved in magazines, making sure I had at least 3 articles a year in a magazine about me or whatever tour. I started doing endorsements. I would cold call these microphone companies. Everybody just go, hey, I'll take your mics out if you write about me or whatever. So I started getting a jump on that before everybody else really did. That really launched me. That launched my career heavily. When I go down, I'll never forget, I went down to Brazil, and I'm coming in. It was with the Tears for Fears guys. We go in the night before to check out the venue just to see what we're getting involved in. And all these guys come running up to me and they go, Doug Kimball. And I'm like, I'm freaking out. I go, I don't know who you are. They're like, we read your articles all the time. And then it was like, dang, a little bell went off. It's like, wow, that's powerful. Getting your name out and stuff. So I started teaching, not really teaching, but I started helping my friends to go, you need to get yourself in the magazines. You need to get endorsements. You got to do this, blah, 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 blah. And now a lot of my friends that were pretty low on the totem pole are huge now. They're doing Enrique. They're doing Matchbox 20. They're doing, what's her name from No Doubt?
Gwen Stefani.
These guys came up after me, and I taught them. I go, get your name out there, get it out there. And now they're like the biggest mixers on the planet, quite honestly.
Yeah. And obviously this is the pinnacle moment of your career to be on the Church Gear podcast. You finally made it, Doug.
It's getting thick in here.
All right, I can go sleep comfortably now.
So, Doug, when you're working with that level of talent, that level of expectation, what are some of these skills that are just non-negotiable? You have to be able to do this to work with this level of talent.
The biggest thing, like I tell everybody, is just be one-on-one with them. Pick their brain a little bit. What do you want? That's why you hired me. This isn't about me. Okay. I'm not here mixing the way I want. What do you want? And I just pick their brain. I make them feel comfortable. So they can talk to me at any time, come up and say, hey, can we make this work that way or that? I go, sure. It's not about me. It's about you. I just happen to be good at what I do. So yeah, that's what I tell everybody. It's just treat them like humans. Okay. That's all it comes down to.
Yeah. Anything on the technical side and your technical skill set that is a requirement?
Well, you got to know what you're doing, for one thing. You can't go out there and use gear that you don't know how it works. And that's been a big challenge these days because everybody's getting newer stuff. And it's like to keep up with that at all the time, 24/7, it's tough. It's gotten really tough because all the digital consoles that are out now don't talk the same language. You got to figure out how their console works. When in the old days, the analog consoles were pretty straightforward, gain, EQ, fader, all the way down. You didn't have to think about it. Now you have to think about it. It's like, okay, where is this? How am I routing that? How am I doing that? I mean, it's a lot of it's a lot of reading and studying on some equipment. So if I get something that's going to go out on tour with me that's requested, I will sit down and pull up the website, read about it, learn about it, and at least get the inside scoop on how I can get around it without somebody helping me. But it's gotten really, I mean, it's really a big deal now because nobody talks the same language. All this computer things, mixers, everything, even the sound systems and the amplifiers and everything that goes into them and all the processing and blah, blah, blah. There's no standard language anymore. So you have to really, if you want to get in the big leagues nowadays, you really have to get that under your belt and understand how that piece of equipment works. And how you're basically turning into an IT guy. Like, okay, I need this piece of equipment, talk this piece of equipment. Okay, I got to assign an IP address. It's just like, that drives me nuts.
Yeah. And if you're going on tour today and you're riding your rider, what console would you choose first and what PA would you want?
I really like the Yamaha PM10s now because it's a Rupert Neve console, and I've had it out. I actually had the first 3 tours out with that, and it's amazing. It's really good, and it's very intuitive, even though it's digital. It was so easy to get around on. Sound system PA wise, I've learned over the years it's band dependent. Is this a guitar band? Like I did Whitesnake. Okay. So the JBL stuff was better for that because it was all guitar.
Yeah. And
one vocal. Okay. The Tears for Fears is more studio orientated. So fidelity. So I would carry out the L Acoustics VDOS for them. So I learned over the years that it's really band dependent. It's not I don't have a favorite, I was over in Germany 3 times for DMB Audio Technics, got trained. I got their product to the West Coast. A bunch of sound companies wanted them. So I actually made the effort to get the training and bring it over and get the West Coast going with the DMB stuff. Same thing. It's like a guitar based sound system.
Yeah.
So honestly, I really like the L Acoustics VDOS. I'm just a fidelity guy.
Yeah.
I like being able to hear the details, that most people can't hear when they're doing a live show. So that was always my favorite. Yeah. And the Yamaha. In the old days, it was the Midas consoles and stuff like that. But yeah, that's pretty much my favorite go-to stuff these days.
Now, with how many tours you've been on and the level of talent, I'm sure you've seen a lot of people get asked to leave the tour. What are some of those things that you just can't do if you want to stay on tours? What's going to get you fired quickly on a tour?
Attitude. Okay. That's the biggest thing. And like I said, I tell my friends, like, just, they're the boss. If you don't agree with it, just nod and say, okay, sure, whatever, do your best. To tell a client the way you want to do things is the wrong thing to do. Okay. You don't tell a client, no, I think this is better. Although I have said, I think this is a better choice, but you let me know, in a nice way, not viciously or anything like that. But yeah, that's pretty much, it's just be a human being. That's all it is.
Blake,
Really.
I keep telling you that. Just be a human being.
Look, Toby, I'm an alien sent here to experiment on you and report back to my kind. All right.
Yeah. It's been an awful experience getting probed like this.
Oh my goodness gracious.
I would know about you because my uncle Stan was a ufologist.
Oh,
Stanton Friedman.
Yeah. Wow.
He has a museum in Arizona, actually. Yeah.
Wild.
Okay. How quickly can we go to the museum, Toby? I need to see my kinfolk.
Doug, what are some of the most complicated mixes you've had to do for specific artists or tours?
Okay, I did Natalie Cole, if you know who that is.
Yep.
She had a 5-piece band, but we would always play with the local symphony every night. So I would have 40 some inputs from the band, then I'd have like 120 microphones around the orchestra. I would have 2 consoles, like,
wow,
L-shaped. I did a very good job, but that was definitely a challenge for me. I mean, it was like, okay, scramble, go.
Yeah.
You know, you don't have much time to make it right, you know.
And were you working on an analog desk or two of them?
I did do an analog back then. Yeah. Two Midas XL4s and a stack full of tube preamps and whatnot.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that was it was a very big challenge because you had to figure out how to route it. Like one console, well, 1.5 consoles I would use for the orchestra. Then I had to figure out how to route it back into a matrix or whatever I wanted to do to get it to the PA, but also make her sound good too, her band. So, yeah, that stuff, like I've done Latin Grammys, working with orchestras. That's a really big challenge for a sound person, I have to say. If you don't have a good ear or you don't really understand, I grew up playing in orchestras as a kid, so I kind of have a clue, but that's one thing I notice a lot of engineers aren't really good at. They don't know how to deal with an orchestra.
And I think so many younger engineers these days have perhaps literally never touched an analog console. With your students, do you encourage them to start on analog or spend some time on it so they understand different principles?
I have a little one that I bring in so that they can see what goes on. This is what it's like in the old day, blah, blah, blah. But pretty much all they ever do is digital now.
Yeah.
I mean, but I do like to share that with them. I go, look, like you can actually touch a knob. Okay. You don't have to grab a mouse to make your mix sound this way. I do like to teach that. I do like to, even if it's just a little bit of knowledge, just let them see and hear the difference, because it's a huge difference as far as audio quality is concerned. Yeah.
Yeah.
Who was the funnest person to mix, whether it on a tour, the band and the tour itself, if you can remember? Because I'm just curious if there was one in particular I was like, man, this is a fun mix.
Well, as many people think bad about him, Marilyn Manson was a really fun. Him and I got along really well. Most people don't get along with him very well at all, but we hit it off, and I just loved it because him and I just hit it off. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah.
Okay. And that was my first time really dealing with that kind of realm of music and theatrical show things and whatnot. But I pulled it off, and he loved it. And we would constantly joke about people all the time because he's that guy. He would push a button, and if you reacted wrong, you're going to get your ass chewed out. Okay. Sorry if I had.
No, you're fine.
No, you're good.
But for whatever reason, him and I don't know what it was, but we just hit it off, and it was a really fun, weird tour to do.
Yeah. And is he really
he's out there, man.
Is he really the kid from Mr. Belvedere? Do you know that rumor?
No.
Don't ask him to reveal stuff about his friends, Toby.
Blake, the rumor when I was in high school was that everybody had a theory about who Marilyn Manson actually was, like the person behind the artist and the character. And the rumor I knew was that he was the son in the 80s sitcom Mr. Belvedere. That's the one I heard most, but there were all these different theories.
Interesting.
No, he wasn't that. He's just that was his thing. He's like, Doug, he would tell me, he goes, Doug, people don't get it. It's just theater. That's all it is. It's just theater. I'm not that person. I'm just putting on a show.
Yep.
And I'll never forget. Remember when that Columbine thing happened?
Yep.
And they tried to put him in court and all that?
Yeah.
They asked him a question. What would you have done? And he goes, I would have listened to that kid. Smartest answer I ever heard from somebody.
Dang. Yeah. It's
totally threw that guy under the bus.
Yeah.
Yeah. It is.
He's brilliant.
It's quite wild. Like what people can believe is true when it's a character, I'm not actually a dummy. I just play it for this podcast. I totally didn't mess up Hank Williams Jr. like a couple episodes
You said
back.
Hank Williams.
Oh, I got to make sure this comes out after now so we don't
spoil
that.
There are both Hank Williams and Hank Williams Jr. Obviously, one is the son.
Okay, all right. I didn't know that either.
And they're both musical artists.
Okay.
So
one's dead.
Yep. And one is persona non grata.
Yeah.
Yeah, he got himself in some political trouble with
Yeah.
some opinions.
Don't we all?
Yeah.
Don't we all get in some political trouble?
Doug, for some of our audience that mixes in a much smaller environment than a Jay-Z stadium tour, what's some advice you have on thinking bigger? Even if you're in a smaller environment, here's how you should think about your craft to move towards greatness.
A couple things. When I walk in, if it's a rental day where somebody brings PA in and whatever, I look at how they hang the PA, and I want to see, and I'll go, let me see your smart sheet and whatever, and I've actually had them bring it down and change the angles on boxes. And they're like, well, nobody else does that. I go, well, nobody else cares like I do. Okay. The money seats, those people down the front aren't getting anything. You guys, that's all wrong. So I would do that. What other technical things? Mostly that, just go in and look at the building and oversee. If it's a small room, and it's sometimes when the room is so small or smallish, and there's a lot of noise, reverberation. One of the things I teach is sometimes you just have to overpower that room. You want to mix at 103, but all you're hearing is all this junk bouncing off the walls. I go, so sometimes you just got to push it up and overpower that noise so that the sound coming out, it might be a little louder than they're used to, but it gets rid of all that bouncy noise. So the mix is a lot cleaner. Things like that.
Yeah.
Interesting.
This is the first guest we've had because most of our production listeners are mixing in a church where everyone's yelling at them to turn it down. And so they're just like shouting from the rooftop, somebody told me to turn it up, and he knows what he's talking about.
Oh, I've had people come up to me on shows. They're like, can you turn it down a little bit? I go, well, go back about 10 seats and it'll be just fine.
There you go.
I'm just imagining telling the pastor, look, the money seats in the front pew are not getting the sound.
That's right. Oh, I love that.
That's a tough environment because they have to, you got all that reverberation going on, and you're trying to listen to the pastor and the band and everything. That's a tough mix. I know guys that do a lot of the church things, and I have to, and it's tough because you can't turn it up. You can't. It's not a rock concert. You gotta make it intelligible enough so those people sitting down there don't complain about the volume, but they can still hear people talk, presenters talk and whatnot.
Doug, we have a buddy who wrote a fake comment card to the pastor, and he was like, praising how loud it was one week to kind of get,
I didn't know we had that.
Am I remembering this wrong? Didn't Todd do this?
It might have. I just forgot.
He did something with a comment card.
That's brilliant.
Turned in.
Yes.
Todd, if this is wrong, let me know. I'm pretty sure that he did that once.
I love that. And
that'd be funny.
Doug, you don't know this about Blake probably, but he knows everything about fantasy football. And what else do you know everything about?
Making cocktails,
but he knows nothing about pop culture references. So beyond Jay-Z and Beyonce, have you heard of any of these artists that he's talking about?
Matchbox 20. Heck yeah. Like, let's see how far we've come. That's like middle school emotional anthem back in the day, man.
Blake, I'll give you $1,000 if you can name one Tears for Fears song. And I love Tears for Fears.
Pain. Because that's what I experience right now. Because I saw the look in your eyes, like he's gonna really do it. What if I had gotten that? Would you really give me $1,000?
Yes, it'll be in your next paycheck.
Oh my gosh, yeah. That's pretty good.
Well, they got quite a few hits. I'm surprised you don't even know one.
If I played him some, he'd be like, "Oh, I've heard that song."
I'd be like, "That's from that movie," is what I would say.
You have to hear it before you go, "Oh, that." Okay.
Yeah, which Avengers movie is it from, Blake?
Oh,
right?
No.
So, Doug, we love, and we're starting early in this episode because we assume you have so many stories. We love good disaster stories. So if you've got 1, 2, or 87 of them, just give us some good moments where stuff got crazy.
Yeah, everything went wrong. And if everything went wrong and you saved it last minute, that still counts, but bonus points if you don't.
Well, I've had a few minor catastrophes, but the one that sticks out the most is I did a show with a guy named A.R. Rahman. He was a songwriter for Slumdog Millionaire, Indian based. So it was like Indian. We had like 15 Indian singers and dancers on the stage. So we did a show at the Pontiac Dome. I'm sorry, I don't have pictures to show you, but knowing my way around the stage and everything involved, I could tell this was not going to work. You know, they didn't have the proper size trussing, any kind of outriggers, anything. It was just freestanding truss over a whole stage. And I went to production 3 times. I go, this is not going to work, dude. I'm telling you. The third time they go, just go do sound, Doug. Okay. And as I walk out, the whole thing comes crashing down.
Wow.
Just completely collapsed. Thank God nobody died. I would have been on stage miking a drum set if I hadn't gone to the production to bitch about it again. And I probably wouldn't, and I wouldn't be here. But that was huge. It was huge. And I'm like going, you know, they pulled us in the office and they go, don't spread this. And I was screaming at them. I go, I've been telling you all day, this is not right. And you're lucky nobody died. One of them went to prison. I know one of the guys went to prison for that because he
just negligence.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I remember just going, God, what if that happened while the whole act was on stage in front of 10,000 people?
Yeah.
Can you imagine? Well, I mean, oh my God. So that was by far the worst thing that ever happened to me. I mean, I've been on a couple other smaller incidences, but I never had a whole stage and truss come down. I've never had that happen. And that was just, that was a really rude awakening call to make sure, you know, and I teach that a lot now. It's my number one rule of safety. It's like, go in, look around. If you see something wrong, go tell somebody. Don't expect that person to be qualified to make that call, you know?
When you said you would have been on stage if you weren't complaining about something else, what were you going to be doing? Did you say you were going to be on the
miking a drum set?
Yeah, I would have been on the drum set right where all of it hit.
I just think that would have been really ironic because what people talk about all the time is the kick drum. Like death because of a kick drum. Like that's every audio person's nightmare is miking their kick drum. Like that would have been quite.
Is that true?
Is that not like what everyone talks about on this show? They're always like the kick drum is like the bane of an audio person's existence. Is it not?
Am I not paying attention, Blake? Is this true, Doug?
Isn't the kick drum always the hardest thing to mic?
No, that's the easiest thing.
I was like, I don't think so, Blake.
I can dial that up in 3 seconds.
I must be hallucinating on this podcast.
Now, getting a great snare sound, that can be tricky.
Maybe I was thinking of the snare.
Yeah, snare, that's a little tougher because some people like to tune it a certain way, and then you got to find the sweet spot for the microphones. You know, I see a lot of guys just put them where they always put them. I go, did you actually listen to that drum at all? You just put your mic where you always do. Is that working for that drum?
Yeah.
No, it's not. You know.
Do you have any good moments where the equipment failed you? Did your mixer go down or something went haywire?
Something blew up. We've had consoles just catch on fire.
Oh, okay. I can tell you 2 stories. Number one, on the Manson tour, I was out with an Avid product and it locked up, but it passed signal. I couldn't mix anything unless I shut it down and booted it up. I'm like, you know, the show's going. I'm just going to let it go. Another one was somebody on the union crew who was underqualified to pull power started pulling power before asking if everybody was shut down. And she pulled the power the wrong way. And I'll never forget, I'm standing at my front of house console and I hear this like sizzle, and all my valve tubes, all my racks went up in smoke.
No.
He smoked every tube in that whole front of house. She didn't ask to, and it's common courtesy. He's like, are we ready to power down? They always go around and check, make sure you're down before they pull power. Or she didn't even shut it off. She just started pulling cables out, you know, the feeder. I was like, and it just sizzled my whole front house rack.
Oh,
how much?
Over almost $250,000 worth of valve tubes.
Oh, That
Yeah,
would have
she
bought
would-
a house back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, she ain't working anymore. I'll tell you that.
Yeah. What's some of your go-to front of house rack gear that you just love?
Manly. I like that stuff a lot.
Mm-hmm.
It's very true to sound. So I use a lot of Manly stuff, mostly on my outboard processing, I do like a mastering thing. The way I do things is a little different than most people. Like I'll do a left and right and I'll master it like a record.
Mm-hmm.
And then I send it to a matrix and send it to the PA. So if
Okay.
I have to EQ stuff, I can fix it on a matrix, but my mix still sounds really, really, really good.
Yeah.
So I use a lot of Manly stuff on that side of things. The ELOP is probably one of my favorites.
Mm-hmm. Got a
just a lot of
Veramu
her-
or a Massive Passive in there.
Yeah. A lot of her stuff I love. It's
Yeah.
just so good, and it's really easy. And you can hear, like sometimes I'll just insert like an ELOP or something just in the left and right, just to get the tube sound.
Yeah.
I don't even do anything. It just recycles through that and then goes back out to digital world and it sounds a lot warmer. So things like that. I love Rupert Neve stuff, of course. I like Drummer. I like Drummer stuff
Mhm.
for gates. Their gating system is really good for drums and stuff like that. But yeah, it's pretty straightforward. Pultec, I mean, pretty much a standard everybody else uses.
Yeah.
But it depends on what band I'm in. But most generally, it's the Manly stuff that is my go-to.
Okay.
And mostly because all I need to do is insert it and boom, it starts coming to life. I don't even have to use it. I just insert it and get the tube sound,
Yeah.
So yeah, that stuff's really great. And I know her very well. And I've represented her product quite often.
Very
So,
cool. So what artist have you never worked with or band that if they called today, you drop everything?
Hand on the Bible.
You
That
were
was
about
my
to-
next
yeah.
question, because I'm thinking all the listeners have to be thinking, who has
Yeah.
he not worked with?
Yep.
Well, that's the easiest way. Who haven't I worked with?
Yeah.
Gosh, Elton John's about the only biggest one I haven't really worked with, and I love his music. I would love to do a show for him. I've done the Stones, I've done all these other bands, but he sticks out most because I grew up liking him and his music, and it would be really fun just to do it once, if nothing else.
Didn't he just do his farewell tour though?
Which one?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I wonder who on record has the most farewell tours. That would be fun to know.
Yeah.
Everybody does a farewell tour like 20 times.
Yeah.
Like Kiss, all those guys, everybody's been doing that for years. Just
And is
milking it.
there any artist that does not perform anymore that you wish would come back and ask you to mix?
Living or dead?
Not off the top of my head, I can't think of anybody.
I was waiting for him to say the Beatles.
Well, they're not all there, so Elvis would have been cool, I guess.
Man.
Just be part of that, but not really. I mean, I've done so many acts. It's really hard to narrow it down, when you got this many bands under your belt, and a lot of these people they find it hard to believe that I've worked with so many of those people. And it's like, I don't know what to tell you. It was just me wanting to work and me making a name for myself. I wasn't going out to prove something. I just love the music business.
Did they just after one person really liked you, did they just start referring you around? Is that kind of what happened, I'm guessing?
Yeah. Like I said, in the early days when you would show up, like I'd always go in early. I'd help people, not even my department, whatever. I'm a good people person. So yeah, I got a lot of calls from after a while, after probably 10 or 15 years, these bands started recommending me to their other bands. They're like, oh, you got to take Doug out. He's good. He mixes good. He's really easy to get along with. He'll make a cocktail for you.
Oh, that's my kind of guy right there. He mixes both. See, I
That's
can only
right.
mix one.
I know.
Doug, do you have any nights that you remember where you're like, and that was the perfect mix? That was my best mix in my entire life. Like, do you have any of those?
Yeah. The Tears for Fears guys, once again. Yeah. Because there was no stage volume. So it was literally, I had carte blanche on the mix. And Red Rocks in Colorado, that outdoor amphitheater, we had a perfect, stunning night one night with no wind, no temperature, no nothing. The band was on fire. I had so many people come up to me and just thank me, like, hey, I could actually hear vocals. I go, well, okay, thank you. That's just what I do, but thank you. I mean, that was a cool night.
Yeah. Wait, I got one more. I keep thinking of like the best of. Who gave the least amount of notes out of everyone you worked with? Who was just like, you know what, do whatever. You Doug, I trust you. You're Doug. You got it.
All of them.
Oh, Stone Cold legend. Love it.
Yeah. No, nobody ever really gave me notes. It's like, no, I know your music very well. I did my homework, and so. If there's something they really wanted, like, hey, make sure this guitar solo jumps out. It's like, okay, fine. But I'm always on top of my game anyway, so it didn't matter. They knew that. They knew my reputation. They have heard me mix. They've heard my recordings, all that stuff. So they're like, just do your thing.
You know who Doug reminds me of is Brad Pitt in the movie Fury. He was not like a high-ranking officer, but he was so good and was such a legend in this movie that the high-ranking officer comes to give him orders and he just goes, I know who you are. You know what you're doing. And he just like gave him the sheet and he walked off.
There you go.
That was how Doug did all his jobs.
And he looks just like Brad Pitt too.
Heck yeah, he does.
What you talking about?
There you go. So if you were teaching a room full of production people like you often do and wanted to sum up advice in one specific tech takeaway, what would you say to that room full of production people to make them better at their craft?
Learn your equipment. Study it. Okay. Don't go in and expecting somebody to tell you how to patch this or make it work. Like, just do some homework. That's all. If you show up to a show, and even though you haven't done something on that piece of equipment, but you have enough knowledge that you can make it work, that's a shining moment in my eyes. It's these people that show up and go, I've never worked on this piece of gear. Can you show me how it works? I'm like, it's not why we hired you.
Yeah.
Do you read the manual?
Not so much anymore because there's too much. I can't read all day long for 7 days a week. There's so much stuff out there. What I do is I just read up on stuff that I'm going to use instead of filling my brain full of knowledge that I don't really need. I just kind of think ahead a little bit and study, just do a little studying and make sure I understand how that product works or whatever. But yeah, there's so much out there. You would spend every living moment of your day learning how to operate everything. There's just so much out there now.
Doug, if I was you, I'd open all my classes with, I've already forgotten more than you'll ever learn. So let's get started on teaching you some things.
Well, that's what I say. I go, I've done more in a week than you guys have in your lifetime.
Okay. Man, if you're going to plug anything, what would you plug? Anywhere you want to point people towards?
Product wise or what?
Some people personally have made courses. Some people say their Instagram. Some people say, I'm good. I was just here for the episode.
I don't do a lot of social media outside of what I did to further my career, but I would say follow the audio magazines, Front of House, Pro Sound. Just start paying attention to those magazines, and then you'll start seeing the same a pattern. Okay, which is what I did before anybody else was doing. I started noticing a pattern. I'm like, well, I could get an article on that magazine. So that's what I would tell people, is just pay attention and focus and try to be ahead of the ball or ahead of the curve. That's how you get there. That's how I got here. If I would just listen to people and just twiddled my thumbs and went, okay, it's working for me, I wouldn't be here where I'm at these days. No way. Absolutely no way would I be where I'm at.
Nice. Well, Doug, talking to you has been like talking to a living legend. We really appreciate you coming on the show.
Well, thanks for inviting me. I'm glad everybody contacted me. This is really nice.
Hey, listeners. We're introducing a segment called Church Tech Confessionals. This is a time for any church tech to anonymously confess the worst thing they've ever done in church production. Here's one now.
When I was in 10th grade, we had to run lyrics from the baptistry because we hung a projector in the center of the room. And I was supposed to be advancing the slides, but I had a crush on a girl and I was trying to impress her, showing her that I knew how to run slides. And I kissed her in the baptistry and I missed the slides. They sent somebody up to check on me and I got busted. But no one knows.
Hey, if you have your own 3 to 5 minute church tech confessional, record it and email it to blake@churchgear.com. Don't worry, we'll apply a voice changer and keep it anonymous. Your secret is safe with us. Your pastor will never know.
Thanks for hanging out with us. We hope to see you back next week for more absurd stories, tech takeaways, and overall buffoonery here at the Church Gear Studios.
Okay, Blake, do you know what a magazine even is?
That's like an iPad, but it has multiple like physical things to turn, right?
Yeah, have you ever gone into like Barnes & Noble and gone to the very back where there's these racks with these paper iPads as you talk about?
You and I have a Barnes & Noble story that we'll never tell, not even on Church Gear After Dark.
No, because that smelled so bad, Blake.
It was bad.
Yeah.
Gear runs, man. Gear runs.
You did have the gear runs.
And Gear died that day. Not our Gear, other Gear. All right, how do we spin this now?
I don't know. Just like magazines share a lot of information, what should our listeners do?
They should share this episode and they should text it to a buddy and be like, hey, if you want to listen to somebody that's worked from everyone from A to Z,
To
even
Jay-Z.
Jay-Z,
Yeah.
you should listen to this episode.
That's right.